Hi folks, I just got through doing a video. I pulled the all of the plastic off of a Husqvarna 125B leaf blower so that I could access this carburetor, the fuel lines, excuse me, the spark plug coil, ignition coil, and I'll post that video later, but I also told you on that video that I was going to pull this carburetor apart, film it all, and put it back together because it's been sitting for a couple of years and it doesn't want to run. So it basically needs to be gone through. I'm going to be as detailed as I can. I've done a lot of these little suckers. These little things could be a pain in the ass. So hopefully what I do will help you out. So let's get started here. As you can tell, I've already got it off of the machine, and I left what I could on here, and it's all for memory. Like this line right here goes to the top of the primer bulb, so I can go ahead and I like to use my needle nose to twist these lines before I pull on them, because if you pull on them, I gotta stay in the camera here. If you pull on them, 9 times out of 10 they'll break and you'll ruin the line. I'm going to replace this line anyway. Sometimes you can't. Yeah, see, it's being pretty stubborn. I might have to just ruin it anyway. But if you can, always try to twist it until it moves on that brass nozzle. There we go. There we go, right there. See, you can move. Now it should pull off there pretty. There we go. All right. Okay, that's off of there. That's out of the way. The next thing is this choke lever. You have to be very delicate about how you take these off. The reason I'm taking this off is because I'm going to put this in some Chem Dip and soak it for an hour. And do a good job of getting it all cleaned out. If you were to just spray this carburetor with carburetor cleaner, you wouldn't have to take this plastic or any of the other plastic or rubber off. But I'm going to, because I'm going to dip it. That's how I do things. Well, anyways, you get underneath it with a screwdriver, and you just kind of have to move around it evenly and get it pried up. I've already got it pried up halfway before I started the video. I didn't have to waste any time. Okay, I have it pried up high enough now that I can grab it with my needle nose right in the center without breaking it, and yank it off like that. Okay. If you don't think you can remember how this goes back on, take a picture of it before you take it apart. I'll tell you, photos are worth 1,000 words, and memories and all that good stuff. Okay, that's out of the way. Now we're going to get down to the intricate parts of this carburetor. Okay, the parts that I can leave on here, this is the idle screw, okay, on this little 125B Husqvarna. You don't need to touch that. Don't even bother with it. There's no O-rings in it. The only purpose it serves is to set this into one position for idle. Okay, so you don't need to take it off to Chem Dip it or anything like that. Just leave it alone. Of course, these need to come off because I need to get inside to the... Well, I'll just show you. I'm just going to show you. Instead of talking, I'll just show you. We're going to pop this off, and I'll explain it as I go. You want to put your thumb down on this thing, and I have magnets and containers to hold all of these small parts, because if you don't use stuff like that, you're going to lose them. You can use either a Phillips or a straight slot on these. Okay. Now the reason you want to hold this down with your thumb is because if it pops off, you might lose a spring or something. Ball bearing, who knows. Now very carefully, you're going to move over here and keep holding it down to the body and see what you can do about just wiggling it off of there. Okay, a little bit of fuel popping out. Okay, right here you can see the gasket that's on there. Okay, and then you can see the inside of the carburetor. And when I dip it, I'm also going to take these little tiny guitar strings that I have, and when I'm done dipping it, I'm going to stick the guitar strings in every little orifice and clean them all out. And then I'm also going to blow it out with the compressor. And on these carburetors, I keep on moving out of the camera, sorry. Right here's a little tiny screen. This is actually your fuel filter. Okay, this is where the fuel comes in, and it filters whatever contaminant is going to get inside of this little bugger. Now, this gasket right here is not really a gasket. It is a gasket. It's also a flapper. I'm going to peel it off for you very, very, very gently and carefully. Okay, it's made of a very pliable rubber. These little things you see, right? Where's my pointer? Right here and right here. These are flappers. Okay, they regulate air and fuel. So does this right here. This is made of a pliable rubber. Don't put this in your chem dip at all. Keep it clean, set it aside, and be very careful with it. It's very delicate. You don't want to ruin it. I don't need to replace this because I can just tell by feeling it and looking at it that it's still very pliable. So I'm not going to replace it. Okay, now here's your gasket that's in between the flapper and the carburetor. These ones aren't fun to get off because they like to stay stuck on there over time. Very gently going to try to get my putty knife. Don't use a sharp object like a utility knife or anything like that. Just use a putty knife. Okay, as you can see, I'm gently moving that in there like that. See, and it just popped off. It doesn't always work out that well, okay, but for me it did. Okay, and here's some more orifices right here that I need to get cleaned out, so it needs to go into the chem dip solution also. Okay, now that I'm done, I've got all of the parts off of there that can get ruined with the chem dip, and I have it all exposed so I can clean it out with my guitar strings, my chem dip, and my air compressor. I'm going to set this aside over here. I've already shown you this side of the carburetor. Now we're going to go to the other side. Go ahead and pop it off. Usually I put these in a clamp, but today I just I'll use my left hand to hold it. Okay, these little tiny screws, they go on the magnet. Don't forget. Don't just throw them on a bench. You'll lose them. And once again, I'm holding that down with my thumb against the carburetor body as I pull it off. There's some really intricate parts inside of here. Okay, I'm going to set this carburetor body down and show you what I have here. Okay, this little piece of rubber right here that you can see is called the diaphragm. This is what regulates the fuel inside of that carburetor to get into the cylinder to make this machine run. Once again, it's a pliable piece of rubber, and it feels like it's getting to a point where it needs to be replaced, but it's still in good enough shape, I believe, that I could still use it. You know, it's kind of getting crispy. I probably should replace it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take it off and clean the carburetor and put it back on and see if it operates correctly. If it doesn't, I'll quickly take it apart and replace this, because right now I'm a long ways away from anywhere to get the part, and this guy wants this little leaf blower back. It's fall and everybody wants to run their leaf blowers. So once again, carefully peel up a corner with your fingernails, stick your putty knife in there, gently go around it. Okay. Hope my camera work is working and my audio. Alright, she's all loose. Now, also when you take this apart, remember which way this faces. This right here, bigger part of the aluminum that's in the center, faces into the carburetor. Smaller piece faces out to here, to this little casing that holds it down to the carburetor. Now, I don't need to chem dip this, but I'm going to anyway. May as well throw it in there. This just holds the diaphragm on and seals it, and it's really clean, but I'm just going to do it anyway. I always do. I even put the screws in the chem dip and clean them up. So I'll set this aside for the chem dip. I'll set this aside to put back in the carburetor when I'm done. Now, right here underneath this pin, okay, is a needle that regulates the fuel. It goes inside this carburetor and does all this air and fuel mixture on high idle and low idle. Okay, when you take this apart, it's got a little spring in it, a little tiny needle, as I explained, so you want to be very careful. I'm going to set this down on the bench, okay, so I can hold it better and give you a better view. Right over here, I'll use my pointer again, this Phillips screw, it's also a straight slot, is the one that you need to remove. Now, as you can see, I'm using the towels in case this spring decides to pop out on me. More than likely it'll land on the towel and I'll be able to find it. Okay, there we go. See, there's that little spring that just popped out of there. It's popped right out. It's right here. Okay. Now, that's one thing I'm going to make sure that I put on my magnet and don't lose. That will go in the chem dip too. Okay. Okay, there's the part that holds it down. But this is made of aluminum. It won't adhere to the magnet, of course, so and I'm going to put it in the chem dip, so I'll just put it over here with the body parts. Okay, here's the pin. That'll stick to the magnet because it's made of metal. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish taking out that screw. Okay, and then right here's my needle. I don't know if you can see that. Let me point at it with my little fancy pointer. It's right there. Okay, so very, very gently get that out of there. Okay, this has this needle has a rubber tip on it. Not all of them do, but this one does. So do not put this in chem dip if you're using chem dip, because it'll destroy it. Just dropped it. Oh, just dropped it again. Okay. Once again, this is aluminum. I'm going to set it aside by itself in a container it can't go in the chem dip, and I can't lose it. So okay, so that is all you have to do to get this. Oh, wait, I'm totally wrong. Another very, very important part I almost forgot about. Okay, right here is your air idle mixture screws. On 2-cycle engines, you always have 2 of them, one for the low, one for the high. Fortunately, on these carburetors that Husqvarna puts on, they stamp the carburetors with the letter H right here. Okay, I'll try to get in the camera. Right here's an H, and over here's an L, stamped on the body of the carburetor. That means that this screw right here, I know it doesn't look like a screw, and I'll explain why in a minute. That's the high idle, and that's the low idle. And the reason these don't have a straight slot in them or a Phillips or anything is because they want you to buy their fancy little tool so they can make money to get them in and out. Okay, well, Gary here's my fancy tool. Okay, all it is a male spade connector. Okay, you can buy it at Radio Shack, you can buy it at Home Depot, Lowe's, and it fits snugly right over those fancy little screws, tight enough that I can turn it in and I can turn it out. Now, I'm going to put it on the high idle screw, and I'm also going to take, once I get this high idle screw out of here, and I'm going to put a piece of masking tape around it and mark it high idle. You don't want to mix these screws up because they're different, and your carburetor is not going to operate correctly. Okay, so I have this fancy little tool of mine. I'll call it the Gary tool. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this screw all the way in. Now, you're going to visually remember the position of this little Gary tool. Okay, I'm going to turn the screw all the way in and count how many turns it goes in until it stops. There's half. There's 1. 1.5. 2. 2. Oh, there we go. Okay, it stopped at 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I know that that high idle screw is 2 turns out. Once you screw it all the way in and bottom it out, take it out 2 turns. Now, this shouldn't be 2 turns, but it is. Now, you know, I got fortunate with this spade connector, the plastic fitting snugly on these screws here. You might have to buy a different brand to do it, because they're all different sizes. Okay, there she is. Okay, I'm going to set this aside real quick. Make sure that I've got... Okay, there we go. Alright, now, that's pretty damn dirty. And it's stuck in there pretty good. There we go. Okay, there's my high idle screw. I'm going to set that side. I don't need to label it with masking tape in front of you. I'm going to remember, but you remember to put it in some masking tape. Mark it H for high idle. Remember that on your carburetor, as you're looking at it, with these in the bottom position, the right hand side is your high idle. You also have a stamp with an H, but they're not always there, so visually remember too how you're holding this carburetor and where that screw went. So there's my high idle. It feels like I wore this out a little bit, so I'm gonna go and grab another one so I get a correct count on taking the low idle screw out. So hold on for 1 sec. Okay, now to the low idle side. Make sure that goes on there snug. Yeah, that feels pretty snug. Okay, now I'm going to look at it, and I've got it almost in the perpendicular position. So I'm going to turn it all the way in and count my turns. Half. 1. Okay, 1 turn. That's all that was. Normally, it depends on your elevation, but on average, both of these screws you start after you do a rebuild or just a cleaning or whatever, just take them out, period. You start at 1. You bottom them out, you bring them out 1 turn. And then once you get the engine running, you fine tune them. And you just barely move them when you've got the engine running. Your high idle and your low idle. Of course, you're going to start on your low idle while it's just idling. Okay, you're going to fine tune that, turn it in, turn it out until it sounds good and feels good. And then you're going to move this over to your high idle while you pull your throttle all the way and get it running at the highest RPMs you can and fine tune that one. Just turn it slowly back and forth until that engine is purring like a kitten. Okay, I'm pulling it out of there. Okay, there is my low idle screw. So, boy, this carburetor really needs a dip. Set that down. Okay. Get that out of there. Remember, that's the low. Okay. Alright, folks, this carburetor, I'm going to do a thorough inspection here, make sure I have no rubber, plastic, Teflon, anything that can get ruined by the Chem Dip. And I don't. It's ready for the Chem Dip. So, I'm going to go ahead and throw this in the Chem Dip. Let me show you what I use real quick. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that very well. Maybe I can move the camera. Okay, it's a Berryman Chem Dip. It's a 1 gallon can. You can get it at any auto parts store. Okay, and this is great stuff. It has a basket inside that you can put everything in. You can soak it for an hour. You can soak it overnight. If it's really bad, soak it overnight. Take it out, rinse it off, put your carburetor back together, as I explained prior in this video. So anyways, this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to shut it down for now, and then when I get done with the dip in an hour, I'll do another video and put this carburetor back together. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. The name of my company is Bluffdale Garage. If you can go to Facebook and look me up, BLUFFDALE Garage, and give me a like on this video, I'd really appreciate it. And you have a good day.